And welcome back. How's everyone getting on?
Grand. Second time this charm. Today we're joined by Paul Taylor. Paul, how about you introduce yourself? Can't believe
Hi,
I messed it up.
my name is Paul Thomas, which is
I,
how
I,
you were
I
gonna.
read
Yeah,
both of your names and I was like, what did I just do?
yeah, yeah. My name's Paul Taylor. I'm a like uh, English stand-up comedian based in Paris, in France, and yeah, I am. My mum is from Ireland, so
Woo!
technically, I've got some Irish in me. I've got an Irish passport. With Brexit now, it's my only solution to still live in France. I just don't have the wonderful, charming accent that you guys do. So I'm kind of a fake Irish. But
I'd argue
I
you
am
speak
drinking a
better.
Guinness. I don't know if this is video or just audio, but
Oh,
if
it's
people are
video.
watching, cheers.
People know you're an alcoholic, sir. It's okay.
Oh my
Mate,
god.
that's the Irish in me.
There you go. Uh, yeah, that's rough though with Brexit. We had this conversation like the first time we were supposed to get on. We were scheduling our blah blah blah. But we were thinking like, how's he going to stay there if he's from Britain? Like, how's that going to work?
Yeah, well, I'm lucky. I've got the Irish passport. A couple of my friends who are English in Paris don't, and so they have to go through the nightmare that is French paperwork to get either like a residence permit or like French nationality. Most of them are just getting French nationality because it's just easier.
Yeah.
Because then they'll at least have a like a European passport, which will allow them not only to live in France but also kind of travel a lot easier. Inside of Europe and the rest of the world as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a shitstorm right now for like the logistics. I think it will get figured out over time, but just for right now, it's just not it's not amazing. But yeah, I'm lucky that I've got best of both worlds. I can live and work in England, obviously, because I've got. I mean, I don't even have a British passport anymore. It ran out in 2016. And I haven't upgraded it. I was going to say that's not the word. What's the word?
Updated.
Updated it. Yeah, I haven't renewed it since 2016. But yeah, it means I can live and work in Europe and live and work in the UK on the same passport because of I can't remember what it's called. There's something. There's an acronym for Ireland and the UK. Like it's not a trade agreement. It's
It's the Good Friday Agreement, is it?
yeah.
No, that's just for
there's
Northern
another
Ireland.
yeah. There's an acronym, and I can't remember what it is, but it basically means that even though Ireland is in Europe and it's part of the EU, Irish nationals can still live and work in the UK and vice versa without having to go through the whole Brexit visa points shit that's going on. I can't remember the acronym,
Yeah.
but it basically means that. So yes, I'm one of the lucky ones.
I figure you're not really a fan of Brexit.
No, I don't. I mean, here's the thing. Like, in 10 years, it might turn out to have been the best decision the UK's ever made. I personally, because I grew up in France, I grew up in Spain, I grew up in Switzerland. My dad lived in different places in Europe. I feel like a European person, and so for me, it seems ridiculous that this has happened. I understand it from the point of view of like the people who live in like small town Britain, and they feel that they've been getting ripped off because of Europe. I get how they feel like disenfranchised by their government and being like, oh, the government gives a fuck more about Europe than they do about me and my little town. And so that was kind of the idea that was sold to them. And it makes sense that like, yeah, of course, why would we bother with Europe when I'm never going to go and live there? I'm never going to bother like what, but then of course that's not how it works. It's not by leaving Europe that you're going to get more from your own government than you did before. It's kind of the rhetoric that's been talked about. So I don't know. I'm obviously on the side of remaining because that's kind of been my life for the past 34 years that I've been alive. So but then I'm in like a very specific case where not everyone in Britain wants to leave and work and live in a European country, and not every European wants to go and live and work in Britain. So I get both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Obviously, being Irish and in the EU, I think it's a bit silly. Um, okay, you were able to do it. Fair play to you if that's what you wanted to do. But I do feel bad for places like Scotland and Northern Ireland
Yeah.
who wanted to remain.
Fully. Yeah, that's
Because it's
I
weird how
don't.
the United Kingdom works. Like they're all
Yeah.
different countries within the same nation.
Yeah, it's one of my routines in my new stand-up show in France. Like it's kind of like an explanation jokingly of like how the country works. It's like 4 countries, but it's one country. And when it suits us, we're one country. And when we want to not suit, like when we play football, it's like 4 separate countries. And it's like, no, we're definitely 4 countries. We're not sharing the flag. Fuck that. But then, when we play rugby, there's only 3 countries because Ireland is one team. Northern Ireland and Ireland have one team, and then it's England, Scotland, and Wales. And then when we do the Olympics, it's like, yeah, we're shit at all of those sports. So let's bring everyone together. Let's put the Union Jack down, and that's how we decide to be one country. It's really arbitrary when we decide to do one country or 3 countries, or 4 countries. Sorry. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Like it's one of those things. It's very easy to react and be like, oh, these Ramonas that are complaining about remaining, oh, these fucking Brexit people, because right now it's happening. But in 10 years, we might all look back and go, hey, the UK's economy's never been better. Whatever happens, like it might be a great decision. I don't see how, like right now, I can't see how it is, but whatever. We'll just have to wait and see.
Well, hopefully get through it. But on a happier note, you're a comedian, and you're a really good one. When myself and Thomas been looking at some of your stuff, and spot on. It's a problem that most of us in French. I don't speak French.
Yeah.
But it's very very weird niche for a comedian to be doing both. So how come? Okay, well, first of all, where'd you get into comedy?
I got into it. Really when I was in my last year of university in 2009, and so for some reason I studied French and Spanish at university, and kind of studied French and Spanish A levels and all this kind of stuff. Basically all through school I did languages, and then in my last year at university, I don't know why, I had more time on my hands than I had in the first 3 years. So I just started watching a lot of comedy online on YouTube and stuff like that, and like the Live at the Apollos on the BBC stuff, people's DVDs. I was watching that, and I don't know, I kind of got into stand up in a pretty big way watching it. And then there was a comedy night at university at like the university bar, where they had like 3 comedians come out, and I'd say like the first 2 that opened weren't amazing. Like they didn't, I don't know. They seemed to be like dying on their ass. And then the main person, who was Paul Chowdhury, who's pretty, I don't know if he's still doing stuff. I think he is in the UK. But anyway, he was good. And then the other 2, I can't remember who they were, but they weren't very good. And I was like, oh, that's kind of weird, because it was my first comedy gig. Like it was the first time I saw live comedy. I'd only ever seen it like on DVD or TV, and it's massive. It's in these massive arenas, and the jokes are very funny because you don't know before you start doing comedy that they've been doing that routine for years and honing it and making it better. Like these guys that were at university, it might have been like the 10th time they're telling a joke, and it just wasn't working. But when you're not doing comedy, you're not a fan that much, you don't really know what it means to write a joke, test it out 1,000,000 times, and then put it in. So I was used to like paid comedians always doing really well. And I saw these guys, I was like, oh, that's weird. Like they're not doing very well. How hard is it? Like me and my mates, we always laugh. We have laughs together, and I think I can do this. So I typed in like into Google, like how to become a stand-up comedian, found out you had to do a bunch of open mic nights. So then I typed in open mic nights in London. That's when I was at university, and went to a couple of open mic nights as a spectator. And then one open mic, one of the guys pulled out because he was too scared. He was too nervous. And my best mate that was with me was like, hey, you should go ask the MC to like take his 5-minute slot. And I was like, nah, man, I don't really have I have a rough idea what I want to talk about, but I don't have it all. Like, he's like, fuck it, do it. And so he did it for me. He went and spoke to the MC. He's like, yeah, I've got my mate who wants to try 5 minutes. And the guy's like, oh, fucking hell. All right, go on then. And I tried it, and it wasn't horrific. It wasn't amazing. It was just me getting out like stuff that I thought about in my head. And so that was in London in 2009. And I did like 10 open mics in London. And then I moved to Paris when I graduated with my job that I had at the time. I worked for Apple, and I worked at the Apple store in London, and then I transferred over to the Apple store in Paris when they opened up here. And so I moved here, And then basically work took over for like 3 years. I was super busy with Apple, like opening stores. I got like a gig outside of the stores where I was like, it was more a corporate job, like corporate training. And so that kind of took over my life. And then like 3 years later, I'd realized I'd been in Paris for 3 years and I hadn't done stand-up. And I was like, oh, maybe I should try and get back into stand-up. So I kind of really properly started again. Or when I say I started, it's January 2013, which is when I got on stage first here in France in English, and also like an open mic in English and then open mics in French at the same time.
Yeah.
That was a long answer to say 2013.
No,
Yeah.
but it's a hell of a story, and yeah, it's really cool that you've you wanted to do comedy, and that you knew as well as you wanted to do with the rest of your life, kind of thing.
Well, I don't know if I did really at some, like it came kind of over time. Like when I started getting into it when I was at university, I was like, like I was imagining, I don't know, myself on stage in front of 20,000 people at the O2, because I think I was watching Lee Evans or someone like that. And I was just like, wow, that's fucking crazy. Like, that's really cool. But it was always like a distant thing. It was never like an attainable goal. And then when I started making a career out of my student job at Apple, that took over, and it like the comedy thing completely disappeared. And then I guess I had like a midlife crisis. I guess they call it a quarter life crisis at 25, right? I was just like, like, am I doing what I want to be doing? Like, Apple's cool. I love the people that I work with, love the company. I could see myself working there for a long time. And I was just like, I really don't want to regret not having tried doing comedy. When I'm like 60 and I retire, I don't want to be asking myself the question, or like, what would have happened if I had have tried doing it full time? So I was like, fuck it. I need to quit. I'll start doing comedy. And worst case, if it doesn't work after a couple of years, then I'll go back to doing something either at Apple or at Google or Microsoft or whatever. Like, I can probably find a job speaking multiple languages in a kind of big company. So, and then when I started doing it, it's kind of, I think a lot of comedians talk about it, where you get like a virus. It's like you do it and then you die on stage, like your jokes don't work. And like, fuck, it feels the worst. It's the worst feeling ever. But then you just want to get back up and try again and try again and try again. It's like really a weird sort of process. And then, yeah, like that was when I was like, cool, like this is what I want to do.
Well, I'm glad it went well, because for a lot of people it doesn't. Like you're saying with the open mics, they're not known for their quality.
No.
In all fairness, but sometimes you get some goals. I'm glad you were a sliver of gold there.
Well, the thing is like they're shit for everyone mostly, and that's because everyone doing open mics is starting out, right? It's like the analogy I would use, it's like walking into like a 1-year-old's birthday party and having like 25 1-year-olds running around the garden just talking shit, just being like, nah, nah, nah. Like it's the difference between that and hanging out with 25-year-olds having an interesting conversation about life and the future and all this kind of stuff. It takes a long time to find your voice on stage. So when you go to an open mic, the people that you're seeing on stage, maybe except for one or two, are not very experienced. They've maybe got 1 year or 2 years of getting on stage maybe once a week. So they've got like 50 gigs in their pocket, which isn't a lot really. You need like a lot more to be able to actually be funny. Like the first thing you try and get rid of on stage is like the nerves. Like it's so nerve-wracking getting on stage in front of people. Some people find it quicker than others, but a lot of people, it's first of all, it's the nerves of being on stage in front of 50 people or 25 people in the basement of a pub. And then the second nerves is like, can I remember the jokes that I've written? And like that takes ages to go away. And then once you know the jokes off by heart and they're working okay, then you can start working on like the stage presence and who you are on stage. And then once that's kind of worked out, then you kind of figure out your style, and then it's easier to write jokes because you know what they would sound like with you on stage. But yeah, it's kind of a long process, and it's like everything in the arts really. Even like musicians go through it. How long does it take you to learn to play the guitar? It takes forever. The upside with learning an instrument is you can learn it on your own at home with no one listening. Whereas with comedy, you have to learn the job. You have to learn the art on stage in front of people. Like you can write as much as you want, but until you go on stage and die on your ass or get a laugh, like that's when you know it's good or not. So musicians have it good where they can spend like 10 years in their in their bedroom just playing shit music. I mean, to be fair, their neighbors might hear them if they live in a block of apartments. It's kind of the equivalent, but they don't have the faces of the people in front of them going, this isn't funny, shut up. Why are you here?
Yeah. That'll wreck your soul right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a question and then it's about to sneeze. Oh, it's so dumb. You see, you're like, oh, don't do it. Oh, what was it? It was with doing a comedy at the moment. You know, you're doing it through your show because obviously, like France is in a pretty heavy lockdown. How have you been getting on during the lockdown?
I've just been trying to find stuff online to do, which is kind of why I set up this kind of space with like a decent camera, microphone and stuff like that to do stuff and kind of build out my YouTube channel. Because
you got the silver play button behind you.
Yeah, I do. It's like every fucking YouTuber has the silver. I've got two. I've got like the old one, which is that one there, which because I like when I first started doing stand up in France, like one of the first things that came, like one of my first like 5-minute bits on stage was around the fact in France, when you have to say hello to people, you have to kiss them on the face, right? Or you used to before Corona. Now no one does anything, which is great. But as an English speaker or somebody not from France, it's like this awkward thing. You don't know how many kisses to give. You don't know which, like men kiss each other as well. And you're not used to it. So I did that was kind of my like first sort of 5-minute good bit in France. Then we made that into a video, like a video sketch. Instead of it being me on stage, it was like an actual, like a tracking shot sketch. The TV company here called Canal Plus, which is the equivalent in the UK of like Sky TV. It's basically like paid TV. I don't know if in Ireland you have an equivalent of like a paid thing like you watch.
Sky.
I don't know if Sky, yeah. So it's kind of like the equivalent of Sky TV. They got in touch and they were interested in like building out like a mini series of like, I'm the English guy in France. Here's something I don't understand. And so we made a TV, like a mini series called What the Fuck France. That was the title of the show, where it's basically 3 minutes and I'm like in the streets of Paris, basically complaining about something French in English with French subtitles. And they then put those videos on a YouTube channel. And that was the first sort of play button on like that YouTube channel that's technically owned by the French Sky TV. And then the more recent one is like my personal channel. But yeah, it's like, yeah, YouTube is like, yeah, I want the buttons. Give me the buttons so I can hang them on my wall. And I've done exactly the same. But yeah, it's I feel fortunate in France because stand-up's not a massive industry. Just the entertainment industry isn't massive. Like there's not that many TV shows. There's not that many stand-up shows. There's not that many. Well, films is a different thing because there's a lot of that, but you can cross over pretty easily here. Whereas I get like in the UK or English speaking countries where stand-up is so big, like if a YouTuber tries to start doing stand-up or a stand-up starts trying to do YouTube, like it kind of creates a bit of friction within those individual pockets of like if a YouTuber tried to do stand-up comedians would be like, fuck off. Like, or yeah, like you've got when a YouTuber tries to do boxing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When a YouTuber tries to do boxing, I'm sure the rest of the boxing industry was like, who are these cunts who can, yeah, all right, fair enough. They can bring in like a lot of audience, but who are these people? So I think in the world of stand-up, it's similar. Even in the world of YouTube, it's kind of similar as well. I think when people try to cross over, but in France, like a lot of people who are doing stand-up shows, there aren't really comedy clubs in France. That's the other problem. There's no real, infrastructure of comedy clubs. So when you want to do stand-up, you can do like 10 minutes here and there in a bar or in a pub. But in order to kind of progress, you have to very quickly build out like a 1-hour show and try and, because they've got many theaters all across the country, but no kind of comedy club. So you have to very quickly build your hour show. So if you're touring an hour and you're doing that and you're filling out, it's probably because you've got something going on outside of stand-up, whether it's you're on radio, you're on TV, you're doing YouTube stuff. So it's kind of the only way to build an audience in France is mostly through doing stuff online. So yeah, I figured during lockdown I would just kind of go full in on YouTube since I can't be on stage.
So would the majority of your audience be French?
Yeah, it's kind of on YouTube. The statistics is like 50% French, and then 50% rest of the world. And out of those people, rest of the world, there's I'd say there's probably quite a lot of French speakers, because there's more French speakers that speak English than English speakers that speak French. So if I'm doing like what I'm doing right now, like I do this thing called Happy Hour live on Mondays, where basically I'm here in the studio with a guest. And we drink a beer and chat with the audience live, and they ask questions and stuff. And that kind of ends up being kind of in both languages, because I've got audience from both countries or both languages. If people ask a question in French, then we'll answer it in French. And so that's where like native English speakers, they'll drop off probably because they're less good at French. But I don't think I appeal that much to only English speakers. Like it's if there are English speakers on that follow my stuff, it's people who are interested in French or who speak a bit of French as well. I try and subtitle everything, but it's a pain in the ass to subtitle. It takes a load of time and also like money. Like I don't have time anymore really to subtitle stuff. So I'm paying a guy in Canada to subtitle like my 1 hour live shows where I'm kind of interviewing. It's basically like this essentially, but with the audience like interacting at the same time. So it's as you said. No, I use a thing called Ecamm Live is the thing that I use because I'm on a Mac, and it was just like I tried StreamYard and it was cool, but it was just I couldn't like it at the time when we were in the first lockdown, I was doing it every day. And I didn't have time to like sit down for the whole day and learn how to use the things. Whereas the Ecamm thing, I think has less functionality, but it's just easier to use. You can drag and drop videos in, like you can share your screen really easily. It's just an easier interface to use. So that's what I'm using for the live stuff. But yeah, it's a pretty niche, as you said, like a niche thing. And it's the kind of the question I've been asking myself as well, like what's kind of next in my career as doing comedy. Like I did my first hour stand-up show, and that went really well. Like it sold out most places that were like 400 and 500 seats. I finished in like 1,300 seater theater a couple of years ago. Then I started my second show, which is also kind of in both languages. There's more French in it than English. But then I was like, what do I do? Like, do I, in order to kind of expand, I feel like I've kind of reached the limit of people who understand both languages and built that kind of community. And I'm like, what do I do? Like, do I do something all in English that's based around France? Because everyone loves taking a piss out of the French, right? So I was like, oh, maybe I can make a thing where I'm taking the piss out of the French, but for a more global English speaking audience. Or do I go full French and kind of build out my career in France since I live here and kind of step out of the niche a little bit and be a bit more broad? But I don't know, I haven't figured out the answer yet.
And have you had the opportunity to do stand-up since any of the lockdowns, or has France opened up at all since March last year?
Yeah, France has been pretty good actually. Like the first lockdown in March to May was super strict. Like everything was shut, schools were shut, parks were shut. You had to fill out a form to like leave your house. So it was really strict. And then I think it was at the middle of May, everything kind of opened up pretty much until the end of October. So we were open pretty much from, I'd say June, I think the theaters opened again. June to October. July and August, France shuts down, everyone goes on holiday, so there wasn't really much going on anyway. And so I managed to do I did like 10 shows in October, which were kind of already planned before the pandemic anyway. So that was cool. I was in the middle of my tour when it all got shut down. So we had to like push all of those dates to spring this year. And it's looking like spring this year is fucked as well. So I'm going to have to maybe push those hopefully to the autumn. And then hopefully like with the vaccines and all that kind of stuff, maybe they'll be open, because it felt like the summer was like almost like a normal summer here, where people were out in bars and restaurants. They hadn't imposed wearing masks outdoors at that stage. It was only indoors. So it kind of felt almost like a normal summer. And then when the
Do you guys have to wear them
autumn hit,
outdoors?
yeah, now we do. Yeah, we have to wear them everywhere,
Oh.
which is it's kind of become it's weird because it's kind of become a normal thing. Like when we see reports on the news of people in the UK or basically any other country, and no one's wearing them outdoors. Like they don't have to wear them outdoors. If they're wearing them outdoors, it's through choice. So we see like news reports of people, and it's like, oh shit, I've forgotten that you could not wear masks outdoors in other countries. So yeah, it's kind of
it was weird here.
Yeah, it was controversial to start with here, and then it's just become the new, like a normal thing. No one even asks the question anymore. But I remember seeing an article on the BBC like 2 days ago, which was like, "Can you catch coronavirus outdoors or whatever?" And the overall thing was like, basically, unless you're sat like less than 2 meters in front of someone for 15 minutes, and they sneeze, and you inhale at the same time as they sneeze, you're probably not going to catch it. I'm like, why are we all fucking wearing masks outdoors?
Especially outdoors, because sunlight kills it.
Well, that's apparently it. And I think the thing what happened in France was there was a big scandal with the masks at the beginning of the whole thing, where I can't remember who it was in the government. I think it was the prime minister was like, yeah, there's no point in wearing a mask if you're not sick. If you're sick, then yeah, wear a mask. But if you don't have any symptoms, there's no point in wearing a mask. So don't wear a mask. And then, and I think it was because they didn't really have enough masks in France to go around. They were ordering them in, but they hadn't had them yet. So that's kind of why they had that come out. And then it was like this big scandal about it. And then so when it came to like September, they were like, yeah, you need to wear them. You need to wear them all the time now. Like, all right, whatever. So
I'm sorry to hear.
Controversial thing during this trial. You can see like in videos from the US, people refusing and screaming ways into shops.
I'm about to make it mandatory for the podcast because like I have one always here, but it'll go over the nose. Yeah.
Well, I wear glasses and it's a pain. It's a fucking pain in the ass to wear. Like I've gotten used to it now. I just kind of have it like under my nose. I know it's not great, but I got it. I got the virus in September, so I'm like, I'm not catching it again anytime soon. So, and like I'll wear it, like if I'm in the metro, I'll fully like cover it. But if I'm out in the street, like walking across the street, then I'll have it like under my nose, because the police, they don't really, if they're like, oh, we'll just they're not really.
You're not getting locked up for being, under your nose.
So
outside,
it's a bit. What's it like over there? Like, are you guys having to wear masks outdoors? No,
no.
Bad over here.
Like that's the line we won't push, because like what you were saying earlier about like what you'd have to actually do to get it outside. We social distance instead. So
right,
but
ideally
our cases
we would.
have been pretty bad lately. We've been on lockdown since mid-December. Kind of thing.
Right.
They opened us back early for like 2 weeks for Christmas, which killed us. I mean, at one point we had like 8,000 cases in one day.
Wow, that's a lot for the population.
Yeah, which is terrible. I think we were the highest per 100,000. We were the highest country in one day.
Right.
Like even beating the US and the UK. Like,
I like how you said beating the US like it's a competition. Like, we're gonna fucking beat these bastards.
That's something I don't want to beat them at. In all fairness,
no.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
Well, you guys have got a great reputation, like in France. Like the French fucking love the Irish. And I remember when it was Euro, what was it, Euro 2016? Is that when the last Euro was? Yeah, because it was supposed to be last year and it didn't happen. Yeah, it was 2016, which was in France, partly or all of it. I think all of it was in France. And anyway, I remember the Irish supporters just, I don't know, just singing along in the middle of the streets, like drinking beer, like cheering the French police on. Like it was really cool. Like, good vibes.
Yeah,
you love the good stories, not the bad ones. Like when someone's acting the maggot, obviously the reputation is going to stick, which is a weird thing when like one person from a country does something bad. So some people may affiliate the entire population with that kind of behavior.
Mm.
It's kind of weird. It's like with the US, for an example. After what we've seen in the last year, you may think a bit less of them, which may not be fair to all Americans. As I've said that a couple of times to some of our guests, that people in Ireland, very much people I know, look on them like they're lesser after what they've just seen in the last year, in comparison that they would have before.
Yeah, it's crazy how media, it's not even media really, because I mean, they're obviously going to be sharing news, like newsworthy stories, and the newsworthy stories are often negative stuff, people rioting, people doing this, people killing, and that's what you see on the news all the time. And so you go, yeah, like it was the same thing with Brexit. Like for me, it was funny when I first moved to France 10 years ago. I wouldn't say it's changed too much, but the French like really like English people, English stuff, like the flag, James Bond, all that shit. Like when I first moved here, you could go to the local like furniture store and they had like Union Jack carpets and stuff like that. They like the I guess the pomp and ceremony or whatever it is. And so it's kind of like, that's also part of my thing in France, and the reason why I was able to kind of forge a career for myself here quicker than other people that started comedy with me in France, who are just like regular French people, right? I've got like the added value of being English, and I'm like in between, I'm kind of taking the piss out of the French. And so, the French and the English have always taken the piss out of each other. So it's kind of like this added thing. But yeah, I felt like when Brexit started happening in 2016, like the cool factor disappeared, or it was going kind of out. And then because luckily the news wasn't obsessed with Brexit every day here like it was back home, people kind of forgot about it. And then when it came back 2 years ago, when it was like, oh, I can't remember the history now, like they voted for something a couple of years ago, and then 1 year ago, like we officially left, and then this year it actually happened, where we left the trade thing and there were blockages. Like it just feels like it goes on and off. But then, when like Harry and Meghan get married, everyone's back like, oh, the English, I'm sure when the Queen dies, we'll get a lot of sympathy. So yeah, it's kind of, as you said, like people attach themselves to what's happening in the news and go, oh, well, these people are assholes because of this. And then it's like the whole country is treated the same.
Yeah, it's not really fair. Like obviously the Irish example is, the drunkenness. And look, we're not even drinking. You're the one drinking.
Exactly, this is true. But
there you go.
In comparison, I'd say to England, the stereotype is anyway that you guys are nice drunks, and in the UK we turn into cunts. It's just like, oh, fucking, do you want some? Do you want some? So I'll fucking take you outside, you fucking wanker, you fucking prick, yeah? Whereas you guys are even nicer when you're drunk. That's kind of the stereotype. And especially, and that kind of came through again because of football in 2016 when the English supporters came over here and like started fights with all the Russians, and like there's the stereotype of English hooligans where 90% of football supporters are normal people, but then the 10% are like hardcore hooligans, so they come over and destroy shit in cafes and stuff. Whereas the Irish, all of them came over here and it was like they just took the atmosphere from like a 5 to like an 11, anytime there was a match between Ireland and someone else. So yeah, I think you have that stereotype of being nice drunks as opposed to angry hooligan drunks.
Well, I'm glad
able to, stick by that for forever. But,
yeah. Because you don't want to be a mean drunk. You want to be a nice one. If you're going to get drunk, yeah. Like actually what you're saying there about like the support, like when McGregor was fighting, you could just hear the singing. Like there was a small audience in the UFC for like the first time in ages, and you could just hear
like 2,000 people, wasn't it? Something like that, 2,000,
yeah, something like that. Yeah,
I don't know. Did they test all the people?
No idea. I didn't read that much. I just read the head. Like I saw it going through the news, so I read quickly about it briefly. Like I'm not, as I said at the bit, like I'm not a huge follower of UFC, but when I've seen like Conor McGregor doing like talking shit and doing his thing, like it's always hilarious. It's it's great. I love it. It's like the good thing about him is like he's not only was a great fighter, but like he had the good like showmanship to go with it as well. You know, whereas some people are just good fighters. And I think that's for every sport, whether it's, you know, someone like in tennis, like John McEnroe way back, like even before my time, like everyone remembers him because he was a good tennis player, but also he gave the referee stick, and it was just like, he had a personality. It wasn't just like someone like Djokovic who plays tennis and wins a lot, but he doesn't have, you know, he doesn't have like that showmanship to go with it.
Wasn't he banned, or he was suspended earlier this year or last year? Because didn't he like fling a tennis racket in some woman's face or something?
Oh yeah, that happened. Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was
That's not
a
good.
ball.
Where's a ball? Yeah, not a tennis racket.
Yeah, I think what happened was like he got pissed off and like he picked the ball and like smacked it behind him or something, and it hit one of the it's not a lineswoman. What do they call it? Umpire? No. What do they call them? Not ball boys. I don't know. Line judges?
He hit the person. Yeah.
Yeah. He hit the person who was sat just like that the whole match. You know, those people that just sit there and just look the whole time. So
it almost seems like eventually they're going to get hit anyway if they're sitting like that, and it's, you know, tennis balls being flung around the place at high speeds.
Just a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Well, sometimes you see them just lean to the left slightly. Like they look, it feels like they're in the Matrix. Like every time you see it in slow motion, they're just like, they're leaning down and then they just move to the side and the ball just goes like boom, and hits the back. I don't know. I'm sure. I think it's going to be. What's the sports situation over there? Like, can people attend sports matches in stadiums at reduced sizes or completely
we have no
not?
Sports on at the moment.
Nothing.
Not even like televised and just with no audience.
GA was cancelled. Hurling cancelled. Football.
Wow.
We're not really big football players, but like rugby, not happening. You know, nothing over here.
Yeah, I do archery, and we do it outside in the woods, and nothing.
Really? They scared the trees are going to catch it?
Maybe.
Oh, you've frozen?
Yeah.
Or is that me?
No,
that's me.
His internet is it's not his internet, his PC. More like it's been terrible lately.
Yeah, let me refresh.
Like, you're just lucky he didn't turn completely green, because that happens. His camera will just go. He'll be looking like Shrek by the end of a podcast, to be honest with you.
Have you got like a webcam or a camera plugged in to the? Is he using his webcam, or is it like an extra camera plugged in?
Oh no, he has like an extra camera. And
right. Okay.
Yeah, me, I have it built into my PC, so that's why I'm at an angle. So that's why I can't.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You can't just tilt it downwards.
There you are.
There he is.
There we go. I can't see you though, so what's going on here?
We can see you though.
I suppose that's good enough.
This is very awkward.
Yeah, what were we saying? I forget. My screen just went blank, and I was like,
we're just talking about green cameras and whether yours is built in or not.
Yeah, it's shite. I'm sure you know, Paul. Like when you're doing, you know, shows, all kinds of things are going to go wrong.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I've had so many things go wrong when I'm doing my lives. It's like I've even got a jingle for like I went from literally from March last year. In fact, the first live show that I did was March 17th, because I did normally for St. Paddy's Day here, like I go out with my Scottish friend and my French wife, and we go out and have a few beers at the local Irish pub or whatever. And we couldn't do that this year, so I did like a live stream with my audience, like celebrating St. Patrick's Day live. And it was the first time I kind of did a proper live. And I think I was on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And I had basically I had like my iPhone in front of me on Facebook. I had my wife's phone on the side on Instagram, and I had my old phone that I didn't sell yet, like on YouTube. And so I was looking through the different cameras being like, hey guys, it's great to see you guys, blah, blah. And it was just like, the sound was shit. Everything was shit. And then because I was doing lives every day, like I upgraded the camera, I got the streaming software, got microphones and all this kind of stuff, and slowly built, but it's still every time even I did last Monday. There was a problem with the camera where you were saying it goes all green. I think the camera plugged into the USB. I think the USB was slightly like hanging out, and so it just the camera started going all green. So like my mate who's created a couple of jingles for the live show, he created like a technical Taylor thing where like the screen explodes and you start hearing like a 56K modem just going like. So yeah, technical issues.
Was it with Zoom by any chance?
It wasn't. No, it was just straight through YouTube on my streaming software. But I haven't used Zoom too much.
Yeah. Because that green problem only happens in Zoom.
Really?
If you use the app, like I'm using it through browser at the moment, but yeah. Otherwise, I'm
so have you got like the pro plan since we're going over 40 minutes?
Yes, because we record our podcast on Zoom, so
nice.
Yeah.
Used to be Skype, and then we moved because Zoom was just a little bit better.
Mm.
And if we can't be in the same room, we want it to be like the best it can be.
Yeah. Yeah, Zoom's pretty good.
It does the job. It gets it done. This is really weird because I cannot see you.
Can you?
I see like a little green box move to whoever's talking.
Oh, but you can't see the actual cameras. That's funny.
Good enough. Some would say I'm better off. Some would say I amn't. Yeah. What was it?
How long have you guys been doing this podcast?
Too long.
No, we stopped. We started in April or May. Was it May? Yeah, May of last year. And yeah, it's been fun. That's
cool. And what do you guys do? Like, what were you doing before that? What do you guys do?
We were in secondary school.
Nice.
So, well, I just say we graduated. It stopped, and so we.
Were you supposed to finish last year?
Yeah, we were supposed to do our leaving cert, and it never happened because of COVID.
Shit.
Like, we got predicted.
And so
grades.
Okay, so you've technically graduated, like high school or whatever you call it, and then so what? You're in college. Okay, cool. Wait, hold on. What age is high school in over there? 18.
Yeah, 18.
Well, you could be 19 finishing it.
16 to 18 or 19, yeah.
Yeah, okay, 16 to 18. And then college being university, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
and you guys, are you in the same university or not at all?
Yeah.
So same university, same course.
Cool.
Do media
not on purpose. Not on purpose.
We're doing media studies. Like we know everything about the media. Yeah, we know everyone's Twitter password.
Everything.
We know
everything.
Yeah. Well, that's a good. I remember doing like a year of media studies in year 10. I was like, what was that? 14 to 16. GCSEs basically. I did media studies, and I remember really enjoying it at the time. But yeah, like it feels like, I don't know what it's like nowadays, but it feels like so underdeveloped compared to what the internet, what media is like now. Like what you guys are doing with this podcast is great. Like, I think they're probably not even teaching that, right? It's probably just like, oh yeah, do you know that they have terrestrial TV?
We did a podcast with the college course and it was terrible. They gave us a survey that they created, told us to have 5 people talk about it in 4 minutes. And yeah, they made us do it and it was rough. It was absolutely terrible. And at the time we were doing this for about 4 or 5 months. And I'm just thinking like, what the fuck? Come on. Or like,
yeah, it's
when the election stuff was happening, we were learning more about like the American election than we were the course content, which I thought was pretty dodgy. Because they were teaching everything like from the perspective of the presidential election. And considering we're not part of the United States, we're part of, the European Union. I thought that was a bit weird.
Yeah, well, what must be difficult as well is like for the people teaching that course is like I don't know how old your lecturers are or whatever, but they're clearly from another generation, whether it's 10 years older, even if it's 10 years older, even 5 years, like my wife is 5 years older than me. I'm 34, she's 39. But I remember when we met, and in those 5 years, like the difference was I got my first computer when I was 12. I think it was 12. And then I think she was like 22 when she had her first computer. So that difference of like the learning curve of learning a computer when you're 12 is so much different when you're 18. And so even though she's only 5 years older than me, like technologically, it feels like she's 15 years behind me, you know? Like, I mean, granted, I worked at Apple for like 9 years, so I'm a bit more tech savvy than she is, but it just feels like, you know, if you're teaching or you're a lecturer of media studies at university, like you need to be like, I don't think I'd be able to do that with, you know, people who are 20 years old and be like, hey, here's some stuff around maybe the theory of like, you know, how you do an interview and stuff like that. But the actual technology, like, man, it's going so quickly that, you know, people running podcasts and doing stuff now, like the people who are, you know, like 40 years old, 50 years old, like I've got no idea how to do any of this stuff unless they're super interested in it, you know? I even watch like, I don't know if you know Joe Rogan, you watch any of his podcasts, but like the technical quality is shockingly terrible. You know, for like a podcast that's listened to by millions, it's like, dude, invest a bit of money in somebody to like set up. I think so, yeah. It's like, get a new camera. I mean, for how much you're earning, from how much you earned from your Spotify deal, even before Spotify, just like buy 2 nice cameras with a couple of good lenses, and the image quality is going to be 1,000,000 times better, you know. But it just feels good. Like he does stand up, so he doesn't really give a shit. And then I guess the person who works with him called Jamie, like I don't know how old he is, but yeah, it's interesting. I guess he doesn't need to give a shit because he's already got a massive audience. It's more like, you know, when we're starting out, you know, and I consider myself still kind of starting out on YouTube and internet and stuff. Like you need to put in like the work to make it look good, sound good, the questions be good, to have some interesting content to kind of build up. And then, you know, when you get to Joe Rogan, no one cares what the video quality is about. Like you're just there to listen to it anyway. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Like if you want to do better than him, you're gonna have to work a lot harder than him, like by a fucking mile.
Yeah.
Which is probably very difficult. No one has like an entire production crew ready to go.
No, absolutely not.
Is able to do in-person podcasts like he is. Like even with the pandemic, he did maybe, I don't know, less than 10 Zoom ones.
Yeah.
And then he got the rest in person. Like he was able to get Mike Tyson and shit, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Well, beyond pretty. Like he even had the Undertaker on the other day. Like,
yeah, I saw some of the clips. I don't listen to it anymore because it's on Spotify, and I downloaded Spotify and I created an account to listen to a recent one with Bill Burr, because Bill Burr is like one of my favorite comedians. And so, but the rest of them, like I only find out of who's on the show by YouTube and seeing the clips. And I was like, I need to go listen to the Undertaker, like the full episode, because I was a huge fan of wrestling when I was a kid. But what was I going to say? Yeah, like I don't know what point it was for him. Like what was it'd be interesting to find out like what episode or what point was it that it kind of started to take off. Like I know obviously it's a gradual thing, and he was doing it for like 10 years on his own. Like where he's answering questions with his audience, with a couple of his mates. And then slowly but surely it turned into one guest per episode. And then there must have been a couple of points where he had like big guests on because they were mates of his or whatever. And then that kind of got people interested. And then, you know, once that momentum starts to build and you're consistent, then you get Elon Musk on, you get Mike Tyson on, you know, you get these people, and like anyone, basically he could have anyone he wanted essentially on that show now. So yeah, it just takes a lot of time and a lot of consistency and a lot of effort and a lot of years where nothing comes of it. You get 25 views, you get 50 views, and then it's like that, you know, and then when you get like 100, you're like, yeah, I've got 100. And then you're like, fuck, I've only got 100. And then you get to 1,000 and you're like, I got to 1,000. Fuck, I've only got 1,000. So Joe Rogan's like 46 million. Do you know what I mean? And then so it's really difficult to try and keep yourself motivated when you see the stuff that's going around you.
Yeah, definitely. But you know, it's hard to compare because, you know, his way of doing the show might be different to, I guess, ours or yours or any other person. But obviously his works But you don't want to be a Joe Rogan copy. Like,
No, of
I
course
think
not.
that'd be pretty clear with people. Like he's just copying fucking Rogan.
Well,
You know?
it's difficult. It's difficult. You can't. I mean, it's almost impossible to anyway, because unless you're a stand-up comedian who loves doing, who loves like MMA stuff and hunting and shit, like it's difficult if you, unless you've got exactly the same interests as him. And even if you do, like, you'll find your own thing. You know, you find, like, I was lucky that I found my thing of like doing French English stuff. So even if it's kind of like I'm still talking to a guest on my live stuff, it's around a different topic and it's slightly different, you know, it's a different angle and it looks different and stuff like that. But yeah, I think as well, like when you're starting out, you take inspiration from the people that you really like, and then slowly but surely you kind of find your own voice. I remember when I started doing stand-up in 2009, the person that was kind of massive at that point was Michael McIntyre.
Yeah.
Who was just kind of killing it. And I really enjoyed his stuff back then. And when I was writing jokes or stories, I was almost writing them in his, like I could hear him talking about the stuff that I wanted to talk about, and it being fucking funny. But when I was saying it on stage, it was shit. Like no one was laughing because I didn't have my personality yet. And so, yes, like it was, you obviously take inspiration from the people that have inspired you, whether it's doing podcasting, whether it's doing music, whether it's comedy, whether it's film, whatever the art is. I think you always take inspiration, and then you make all of that, and then you add your personality to it, your life story to it, your passions, and it turns it into something else.
That's funny because I started off watching comedy by watching McIntyre. I was a huge fan of his for years. He's great.
Yeah, I still really enjoy him. Like everyone gives him shit. Like everyone in the comedy world is like, oh, it's fucking, you know, he's doing his own show and stuff. I still like, I still find his stuff a lot funnier than some like, you know, cult comedians who've got like these, you know, who believe they're better comedians. For me, it's like, are you making people laugh or not? That's for me, like the first thing in comedy. Like you're a comedian, like make people laugh. You know, if that's what you do, then you're doing your job well. And clearly, he makes millions of people laugh because he fills out the O2 Arena like 10 nights in a row. Like you can't. The numbers are undeniable. He hasn't just paid people to sit in those seats. Do you know what I mean? So clearly, and yeah, maybe it's a different type of comedy than people like, or they're like, oh, he's talking about toast. Like that's not real comedy. Real comedy should be pushing the boundaries of this theme or that theme or whatever. And it's like, it can be pushing the boundaries, but it can also be jokes about fucking waking up in the morning. You know, I think sometimes in comedy, people take themselves too seriously. Yeah. About what their mission is. It's like, oh, you know, I want to talk about Black Lives Matter, or I want to talk about, you know, the political thing. I want to talk about Brexit. It's like, yeah, do that. My opinion is if it's funny, great. If it's not funny, then you're doing a TED talk, basically.
100%. I think McIntyre is that, not that even his humor is childish, but I found it funny when I was a bit younger, and then as I grew up, I guess more comedy. I started watching more Mock the Week. I started watching, you know, Frankie Boyle, Carr. I think I like McIntyre. I used to watch his Christmas show every year. Thought they were great. Or the show where he used to, he used to prank people on the phone. Those fake messages, they were great.
Yeah.
They were brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, his early stand-up stuff I really enjoyed. When was he recently had a stand-up show on Netflix that came out this year. It was just I think they filmed it just before the beginning of the pandemic. And honestly, I was like, yeah, this is good. Like it's good stuff. It's very, the equivalent in the US would be someone like Jerry Seinfeld who talks about nothing in a way. Like he's just talking about regular life stuff, you know? And I think people undervalue that type of comedy. Like people are always like, oh, is the comedy making me think? Like, oh, this person's pushing the boundaries of whatever. And then people think that talking about toast is easy and making people laugh is easy about toast. For me, it's even harder. Like if you're making jokes about what Donald Trump said this week in the news, that already is funny. Like if you take one of his tweets, it's already funny and you just add your punchlines to it and you ham it up. But the fact that you're talking about putting jam on toast or how you dip a biscuit into tea, there's nothing funny about that to start with. So I find it even harder to make more basic comedy, as people would talk about, like Michael Mack and Peter Kay, like someone like Peter Kay, like his comedy is very basic, right? He's talking about everyday things and it's hilarious, you know? And yeah, you guys have got, what I enjoy about Irish comedy is it's very storytelling based. That like I really enjoy, as opposed to just like joke. It's like Dara Breen. His stand-up shows are like very story orientated, and I think that's cool.
I love Dara Breen. Like I said, Mock the Week. I used to watch Scenes We'd Like to See for hours, or like I was a huge fan of that show when I was younger. So
yeah, he's good.
100%. Jared, are you with us, or what's going on at all?
Can you guys see me?
No, we can see you. Yeah.
The three final.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What can you do?
Paul, I think we've taken enough of your time. I want to thank you so much for coming on.
It's been a pleasure, guys. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on and asking questions and stuff like that. And it's great. Like, keep going, keep doing this thing, keep speaking to different people. Yeah, it's awesome.
We'll have to have you on again at some point, because you're one of the funniest men I've ever talked to be honest with you.
Well, hey, quick question actually. How do you know about, like, how did you find me?
Well, I think Thomas found you, so Thomas.
I know.
Because I feel like because I changed, so I was doing, because the live shows that I'm doing, I take the audio and I basically put it as a podcast. And I used to be using a host called Podbean that you have to pay for and all this kind of stuff. And I wasn't like, yeah, well, and this is the thing. So I was using Podbean, you have to pay for it. And I was like, I'm not getting very many listens. Like, it's more of a live video thing, but I thought I'd put the podcast out for the people that can't watch YouTube for an hour and they just want to listen on the metro or whatever. And I feel like since I switched to Anchor like 2-3 weeks ago, and I feel like since I switched to Anchor, I've gotten like 5 emails from different people who run podcasts to be like, hey, would love to have you on this podcast. Would love to, and you were part of that bunch of emails of podcasts. I was like, maybe like by moving to Anchor, it pushed the show, like, I don't know, it made it more visible somewhere. So I don't know if that's how you found.
You know what it was? I think, do you know on Instagram when you have recommended page kind of thing? One of your videos where you were explaining the English, like swear words, one of them came up for me on that, and I clicked into it, and it was very funny. I think it was either.
Yeah, like the 1 minute thing that I was doing for like the second lockdown, where it was like, hey, French people, let me tell you how to swear in English so you can tell the government to fuck off and they won't know. Yeah, okay. That's interesting, because I feel like those videos kind of died on their ass because they're all got swearing in them. On YouTube anyway, they kind of fell flat compared to the other stuff that I do. So I think it's because it had like swear words in it and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so it's interesting that came up in recommendations. Yeah, it's always fascinating to find out how people find out about, the podcast, the show, whatever's going on.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, it's weird how people find your show, where blah, blah, blah. Like, so someone found us from like, someone found us from like an episode we did with just like a paleontologist, and then has been like hooked to the show ever since. So it's weird, like how your interests change and like what communities you take part in, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, because I imagine when you put it on YouTube, obviously you put the name of the person in the title. And so if somebody is a fan of that person and they type in, like for me, if they type in Paul Taylor, it'll probably put like some of the most recent content at the top of the search. And like this might show up, and then people might be like, oh, this is a cool podcast, let me listen to it. So I guess that might have been what happened with your paleontologist guest, that somebody online was looking up his name, and then the interview with you guys came up. Maybe I don't know how it works.
Who does, man? To be honest, who knows what they're doing?
Exactly.
Anyway, this has been Paul. I did it again.
Oh my God, Jared!
No. What happened there was a noise came from your screen, and my eyes darted to it. This has been Paul Taylor, the comedian.
Thanks so much for getting on, Paul.
Thanks.
Thanks
Paul.
so much, guys. Good luck with your studies, and I hope you do some great things.
Thanks so
million.
much.
And
And
Paul, if people
thanks for
want to check you out, where can they find you?
They can find me on the old people social media like Facebook and and Twitter. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you type in Paul Taylor comedy, there's many Paul Taylors in life, so you have to just add comedy to the end of it. There is another comedian in the UK called Paul F. Taylor, who doesn't look dissimilar to me. So you just have to make sure it's the French one. Type in Paul Taylor French comedy, you'll find me.
Oh, there you go. All right. Thanks for
Cheers.
listening. Have a good one.
Top of the morning, lads and ladies. Support for the Awfully Irish podcast is now brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming.
Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels, and you're no longer need the look of the Irish with the ladies. Manscaped just launched in Ireland. We've gone years without using the right tools for the job. You can now be one of the first men in Ireland to experience their life-changing products.
Your balls will thank you.
Get 20% off and free shipping with the code IrishPod at manscaped.com.
That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code IrishPod.